because we start learning about money early, but oh, there we go. We start learning about money, but really our high school job is probably the first time that we actually start managing our own money. And what happens is that we tend to learning takes place in many different ways. Some of it's actually conditioned learning, if you've ever taken a look at learning styles. And conditioned learning is interesting. It happens sometimes without us even being aware of it. And so the title of this presentation, right, was 5 Steps to Financial Success, but it could also almost just as easily be retitled as 5 Steps to Thinking About Doing Money Differently. Chances are in high school, when we get our job, we also got our first checking account, and we thought we were the bomb.com, going back again to the 90s when it was such a great time to grow up. We thought we were the bomb.com, right? When we got our first debit card, it had our name on it. We felt like an adult. And we had a checking account and a savings account. And some of us might still have a checking account and a savings account. And we spent our money on lunch with our friends and maybe saved a little bit of it, and depending on our circumstances, right, even food for our family, right? But we were conditioned probably by the way we grew up to a certain degree as to how to manage our money. We have made this content in with one of our partners at Mountain America, and his name's Todd Romer, and he's got an interesting story. And this is why I say a little bit about doing money differently. Sometimes success means needing to change some financial behaviors. When he was 15, it was a rule at his house that you had to have a job at 16. He actually started a little early. He created a lawn mowing business for his neighborhood at age 15. And his first summer, he made 2,500 bucks. And this was back in the late 1970s. And so, I mean, that's a ton for a high school kid now. Back then, it was even more. And so, towards the end of the summer, school was about to start, and he came downstairs, and his dad was for breakfast looking at the newspaper with his magnifying glass. And I'm guessing there's somebody in this audience who would know what you look at the newspaper with a magnifying glass for. Uh, I'm just curious. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to throw it in the chat if you know. Why would you be looking at a newspaper with a magnifying glass? Public notices. Stocks. There it is, Bonnie. You nailed it right there. He was looking at the stock quotes. So if some of you, if you've never had to do this before, I actually did this in school. We played a stock game in 6th grade, 7th grade, where we had to monitor our stocks. And so I still actually remember, and they gave us magnifying glasses to be able to see it if we needed it. But right, stock quotes were updated only daily. You couldn't check it minute by minute like we can now, which can actually be very detrimental to our investment behavior. But it was updated daily on a page or two of the newspaper, and it was super tiny print. So Todd comes down, and his dad asks him, "How much did you make this summer?" And he tells him 2,500 bucks. And his dad drops the magnifying glass. Well, no, he knew he was mowing lawns, but didn't realize he'd made so much. And he asked him a little fearfully, "Well, Todd, where's the money?" And Todd was unique, right? Especially as a 15-year-old, he had put all of it in the bank. He said, it's in the bank. And his dad said, "Awesome. You tomorrow are going to call my friend, who's a financial advisor. I can't remember his name. And you're going to invest in 10 shares of Johnson and Johnson stock." And so Todd's response was, "Who are those guys?" He didn't know who Johnson Johnson were. If in case you're not aware, right, they're a company that makes a ton of household goods. They make things like Tylenol, soaps. You've used Johnson and Johnson products; it's almost a guarantee. And so, but he did it the next day. He called his dad's friend and bought 10 shares of Johnson and Johnson stock for $430. And plus the advisor fee, I think it was like $70, and so he spent $500 total. And kind of a unique thing. Not a lot of 15-year-olds do that, right? So come 6 years later or so, he is now a junior in college, and he comes home, and his mom tells him his statement he'd come home to do some laundry or something. His mom tells him his statement was in the mail, and so he goes to check his statement. He hadn't been checking it. And he had made that $430 was now $1,900 in 6 years. And he said, I didn't have to mow a single lawn. So this triggered something in Todd, and he went back to college the next week after the weekend, and he started asking people like on campus in his classes at college parties. He's like, do you own stock? Do you own stock? Do you own stock? And he found all of these 20-something-year-olds, none of them owned stock. Um, and he found out that there was two reasons that mostly people said no. Well, three reasons. The first one is they didn't even know what stock was. But I am kind of curious just to get a pulse for what maybe your perception is as far as investing um, beyond just like the company 401k, right? Or what is it, you guys? Why is it that people don't invest, especially younger people? What is it that tends to maybe hold them back? What perceptions do they have about investing? Fear? Hey, fear of what? Risk, lack of knowledge, yeah. Okay. Lack of knowledge, fear of losing money. Okay. Yeah. It's easier to access the banking risk advantage and they spend a lot more, right? Okay. He found actually there were a couple of other perceptions. They actually didn't fear it because a lot of them didn't know enough about it. But those who did know a little bit about it felt like it was something that you could only do if you had a lot of extra money. Or it was something that you needed to be way more intelligent than they were at the time to do. The investing back then, and sometimes actually talking to teenagers now, it's kind of the same thing. Those who are aware of it do fear. Yeah, exactly. It's something my grandparents did. Yeah, it's for the. It's something you do when you're older. That's actually the perception in a lot of teenagers now as well, or college age students. And surprisingly, it's still the perception of a lot of middle-aged people that investing, and I will say it this way, investing is only for retirement. So there's some perceptions here, right? I wanted you to think about the first time you started managing money. Todd started doing something differently, and that actually facilitated some pretty impressive things that he did because he did it differently. His dad was able to teach him some things earlier. And so what this kind of caused with him, and you kind of see this is why I bring up Todd. We made this in conjunction with him. He runs this Young Money University where he goes all around speaking to college students. But it spurred this idea in Todd that there is a difference between being a financial survivor and a financial success. And you could label those some other ways, but again, getting your kind of feeling on some of those things, starting out with the financial, well, put it in the chat. What do you see as the biggest differences between a survivor and a financial success? And you can just describe one or the other, but I'm curious your thoughts. What does it look like to live life, I should put it that way, as a financial survivor versus somebody who is experiencing financial success? Paycheck to paycheck. Okay. Yeah. Oh, good. Three just right there. Okay. Having a safety net. Yeah. Rainy day savings versus not. Okay. Success is being able to plan for the future, plan for yourself and others. Oh, Darren, nice job. I like the fact that you included others in there. Survivor, barely enough to get by. Yeah. It's interesting. Success can be defined in different ways. A lot of you guys are, I think, feeling the same thing. Christina, nice. I think that, yeah, you're living in stress, right, with that financial survivor mode, where maybe a success. So that's the interesting thing about this, and you're kind of nailing this. You guys have um, you're generally describing the financial success. Sometimes some audience will say, I've got once you hit the millionaire status, that's really success. That's a limited definition of success. Um, and it's a specific one, but if that's the case for somebody, but I think you're kind of nailing it on the head. There's a quality of life and a quality of an emotional state as well that comes with that survivor mode versus success. Okay. Um, yeah, good. Lynn, another one, right? Share enough to share and donate and cover emergencies. That's great. So the purpose of these 5 steps today really is twofold, right? It's the idea of moving us from survivor mode to success mode and getting us to think differently about our finances to enable that. there's some things that might be holding us back, and some things that we might just have been conditioned to believe that aren't bad. Okay, I want to be very clear. I try very hard not to talk in money in terms of right and wrong. Um, this isn't a final judgment of whatever your beliefs are, right? This is goal-oriented behavior. This is good, better, best, right? You might be doing some good stuff, but maybe there's a better thing that you could be doing for your particular goals and situations that you haven't thought of just because you haven't been exposed to maybe some of those different thinking processes. So here's the 5 steps. Hey, it starts with dreaming, moves to saving, spending, investing, and giving. I mentioned I appreciated some of the interest initially in involving others. There's a lot of research that would suggest actually that true financial success does involve other people. So we'll start out with number 1. And again, this is something I love to ask in the chat. You got to make a decision to dream, and just throw it into the chat. What are some of your financial dreams? Like, what is it that you want to purchase, accomplish? Whatever. Travel, awesome. um, travel, world travel. Vacation, yeah, that's early retirement, good. Yeah, not having to go into work, maybe. Okay. Ooh, a hospital and school in Haiti, that would be awesome. Home improvements, yeah, that's one of my wife's and I's. We love buying a house. Good. 5 acres of land. Patrina, that is awesome. I have a desperate dream. I want to own at least 2 acres of mountain sometime in my life that I can, in times like this, I can just leave if I want to. Okay, buying a homes. Okay, a Tesla. There we go. Nice. The Tesla truck, Nancy. That's kind of a crazy looking vehicle, or just a regular Tesla. Regular Tesla. They're kind of crazy cars. None of them are really regular. Just the sedan. Those are cool looking vehicles. Okay, so good. I love that. There's a variety. That's the thing, and that's why I like this picture. You'll notice everybody here has a different dream. And this is again why I say enough to cover health costs. That's a great one. This is again why I say, as a quick side note, Lynn, I hope you got an HSA or look into that. That's one of the best investment vehicles aside from a 401k. It's amazing. That tax-free stuff for health expenses. So everybody's got a different dream, and that's why I say right and wrong is not necessary. If you are thinking in terms of right and wrong with regards to financial behavior, which can be very easy, particularly in a highly religious culture, um, I would invite you to begin to get out of that thinking and be thinking of goal-oriented decision making. If you need to still use the terms right and wrong, think of it in direction, well, is this right for my goal? Is this right for my values, right? And this will start to kind of help ground you a little bit. It becomes your motivating factor, which helps you actually squash fears, right? If you've got some core dreams, some core values, then you want them, you're motivated by them, and it helps you overcome those emotional situations. I actually just got done talking with Utah Nonprofits Association about how in financial decision making, um, if you've got some of these cores in place, it helps stabilize emotional volatility, especially that you might be experiencing now. So this is where you have to start. Um, I think I mentioned this group before, and I'll show you again. But Mountain America has started doing personal financial counseling for everybody in the community, but especially for people that are part of like our select employer groups, like you are, and for members. But really anybody can do it, um, whether or not they're a member of Mountain America. And all of those coaching sessions, and I've done a lot in the past before that, it's very interesting when people begin to ask, well, what's best, what's best, what's best? You can't, I can't, as a financial counselor or educator, answer that question until I know where you want to end up. Because there are so many different things you can, there's an infinite number of things that you can do with your money. And sometimes, getting the highest return on investment actually isn't the thing that's best for your particular goal. So you have to start with this step. And if you've never done that before, literally written down, you have to be specific, right? Just like like with the Tesla example. Tesla doesn't make a ton of cars, but there's at least 4 or 5 options, and each of them cost differently, and obviously the options inside. And so until you really get specific about your dreams and goals, including when you want to accomplish them, uh, you can't really start to create a clear plan. So, uh, Darren, well said. As somebody who's 6'5" and who grew almost 6 inches a year for a couple of years, sometimes those floods, they just keep coming. So number one is you got to make a decision to dream, and that begins to facilitate step number 2. And this is where we get into maybe a little bit of different thinking about our financial behavior. Um, the key here being, obviously, if if the step just said save money, then I would I would invite you to leave right now, because, like, duh, right? Obviously we need to save money. But here's the interesting thing about saving. Um, Money is actually kind of worthless unless you spend it. So saving is actually, if you begin to think about it, saving is just delayed spending. And we all save money with a plan to spend it, right? If it's an emergency fund, yeah, I don't know when I'm going to spend that, but I'm planning on spending it. If it's a car maintenance, savings, it's the same kind of a thing. We're saving with a plan to spend it. If it's travel savings, again, so it's this idea that we are connecting, we're always spending money. So some of that emergency savings might be, the idea is spending money on security or safety, some of those things that we value for our family or for ourselves. So one of the key things that research has started to find with financial behavior is that people who are successful in saving do things a little differently than those who struggle with it more. And some of the things that they do are, you can see here, they save money automatically. They set up regular transfers, however often they get paid, or once a month, at least once a month, where they have money going into savings accounts for specific purposes regularly without having to exercise their own willpower. They don't have to remember to transfer money to their savings or evaluate things at the end of the month. What they've done is they set up an automatic transfer that comes out as soon as their paycheck hits, so that when they go in and check their money, the money's already where it needs to be, and now they're only working with what they should be working with for their particular goals. And they set up digital envelopes. So let me explain this a little bit. When like I mentioned, the habit or the conditioned behavior is generally to have one savings account and one checking account. And the problem with this is, you can tell me if you relate, my guess is that this is the case, is that when we just have one savings account with one amount in there, we do these mental calisthenics, right? Maybe we need to transfer some money into our checking account, or we need to see, and so we've got this number, right? I've got $2,000 in my savings account, and some of it's for car maintenance. I want to reserve for car maintenance, and this much is for emergency, and this much is, I'm pretty sure I got enough, and I transfer it over. And we really have no clear indication as to how far along we are in the process of accomplishing whatever savings goals we have. Financial technology has progressed significantly, especially recently, to enable us to get out of that setting, so to speak, and create more emotional connections with our money, and create clear understanding of where we stand in relation to our goal progress. And so digital envelopes would suggest, you've heard of the envelope method, where you've got multiple envelopes with cash. And if you want to use that method, that's great. It has some inherent risks to it, and it's bulky, right? Carrying around all that cash. Um, but it's the same kind of concept. Most financial institutions do this. I can obviously speak to Mountain America most easily. I have in the past banked with Wells Fargo and Zions and Key, and I know that some of these options are available to one degree or another. But the invitation is, and the suggestion is, to not only set up automatic transfers, but to create multiple named savings accounts. And named is a kind of key here. Because you can then create a specific goal for that account and you create an emotional connection to it, right? If you're driving home from work one day and it's been one of the worst days, and that happens, we get it, and you're driving home and you're thinking about the fact that you have to make yourself food, and that just sounds even more miserable, and all of a sudden the angelic voices shine down on the golden arches in the distance, right? Ah, and you see McDonald's, and immediately your stomach and your emotions, you just have this emotional craving for relief from having to make food and for just some high sodium burger that tastes amazing, and top it off with a Diet Coke or something. In that situation, yeah, I mean, in that situation, if you've just got a savings account named savings and you pull up your phone, right? And exactly, you're feeling hungry. It's lunchtime right now. You pull up your phone and you see, yeah, I can transfer some money. I'm just going to buy dinner for everybody tonight, because you're kind of like, yeah, I'm not putting any other goals in jeopardy. That's super easy to do. But if you pull up your phone and you realize that you've got a savings or a checking account, because you can set up multiple checking accounts too. You've got your savings or checking account that says eating out or date night or whatever it might be, and you realize you've only got $5 in there, and so you're going to have to transfer it out from another account, and you're looking at it, and you're looking at an account named Hawaii or kids education or car maintenance, and you've been noticing your car has been making a weird noise. You now have to choose to put Hawaii in jeopardy for McDonald's. And maybe that's worth it to you in that particular moment, but at least you're starting to make a more rational choice, right? So naming it is key. And if you start to set up automatic savings, then what happens is that you begin to prepare for these future needs without having to exercise that willpower, and it just sort of happens. It's amazing how it happens, right? Jen, it is being recorded. So if you've got a car maintenance account, it sounds horrible, but it becomes your sexiest account when that guy over the phone says with parts and labor it's going to be $900, and suddenly you check your car maintenance account because you've just been having it automatic, you haven't been checking it, and you've got $700 in there. That's sweet. $700 of that $900 is covered, or maybe the whole thing. So the idea is here, automate the savings process and make it very clear as to where your progress is. You know how much you've got for your vacation. You know how far along you are in your emergency fund, if you're there or not. And then that also enables you to know whether or not you can slow things down if you need to, right? If you've reached your 3 months cash in your emergency fund, great, slow it down a little bit and move money towards other spending or savings processes. So thinking a little bit differently. Now, I will say Mountain America allows you to open up to 99 secondary savings accounts. That's probably too many. um, but with you have to have $5 in there to start it, but then it can go down to zero. So you can have like your mortgage payment pulled automatically out, things like that. Other financial institutions do allow that. A lot of them, especially banks, because they have investors, tend to have a little higher minimums and things, but I would for sure take a look at this kind of behavior. Research has shown that this helps facilitate preparation for future emergencies in particular, and goal accomplishment. Step 3 is a result of, these are kind of chronological. It's hard to do one step without the preceding ones. But step 3 is something that grows out of step 2, and it's kind of like the example that I gave you. The idea is to just say no sometimes, but to still spend, right? If you're allocating your money, if every dollar has a job and you're able to see what you can spend when and where and how, Yes, Mountain America will do, Julie, automatic transfers to each savings. You can set that up. You can actually set up the secondary accounts in your online banking for most institutions, but for Mountain America as well, on your own in 2 minutes. It's a couple of clicks, and then set up the automatic transfer. So once you've done that and you're starting to get those amounts, you can see this. It helps you to develop a realistic spending plan. And realistic means you're going to have those days where work is going to be horrible for one reason or another. Maybe life outside of work makes the workday hard, right? And so you're going to want McDonald's or something at the end of the day. These automatic transfers and named savings accounts allow you to plan for that. Absolutely, create an account named sucky workday dinner, whatever it might be, right? But I've talked to some people in recent financial counseling appointments where they've created a savings account called like a glitter purchase, right? They sometimes this particular individual that I'm thinking about loves purses, shoes, and like lipstick, like those kinds of things. And she was feeling guilty about it because she'd spend on that, but recognizing that it's a consistent purchase and it's not necessarily putting her in a bad financial position. What can help you say just no sometimes is that if you allocate, you know what, there's an automatic transfer of $20 every pay period going into my glitter purchases. And so I know I've got $40. If you allocate it, it helps curb the spending and helps build anticipation for future purchases, but also enables you to have a realistic and enjoyable spending plan. It reduces the emotion with money. You don't get caught up in the excitement of that one purse when you realize you've only got the $40 and there might be the next one. It's key. So starting with the dream and connecting the way you bank to those dreams and those goals allow you to then live life the way it's meant to be lived. And the way I say that is, like I said, there's so many different financial pathways. Most people struggle with their budgets that I've found because they're trying to do it the way somebody told them to do it. There is some sort of authority figure telling them that this is the best way and it's the best way for everyone. Usually they're trying to sell their plan to somebody, right? And their materials, and that's fine, because a lot of times it does work for a lot of people. Um, but if you've really gone through the process of creating your own goals and timing, allocating your transfers and savings to match those goals, then you're creating your preferred financial system. And technology has enabled you to do that much more easily, especially since, most of us, this is our financial institution, right? Our phone is our financial institution. So we can get that immediate feedback. So you just say no sometimes, but you can continue to spend the way you want to. Once you've got those 3 steps in place, and really you've got a better idea of what's going where and coming in and going out and how it needs to, now we can talk about step number 4. Sometimes people get excited about this step and just want to talk about it right off the bat and think we should spend more time, but really, unless you've gotten those other 3 things, investing is for a longer term plan. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. So once you've got the short term taken care of, once you've got your life secure in the way that you want to live it and your goals are going forward, now we're able to invest automatically. Again, there's that kind of key word, right? Automatically, because and we put monthly here. It could be bi-weekly, it could be every week. But if you're doing it automatically, you've seen this in your retirement accounts, right? You can take advantage of the downturns. I hope, even in these circumstances we find ourselves with, you haven't allowed the emotion of a market dip or correction to spur you into selling the shares or getting out of the things and locking in maybe some of those losses. Remember, the stock market's unique. The balance doesn't matter as much until you need the money. What matters is how many eggs you've purchased, so to speak, how many eggs are in your basket. And so as soon as you sell some of those eggs, now you've lost the value. But as long as you hold on to those shares of those companies and those funds that you've purchased, and keep buying more when they're on sale, you can now fill your basket up faster, and you've got more available to you when the value comes back up. So regularly investing, if you can do it automatically, it's that same kind of a thing. Okay? And it's never been easier to get on this idea of a compound interest train. And what I mean by this is, um, I'm not talking just about retirement. I'm talking about goal fulfillment outside of it. Remember our friend Todd, he was 15 years old. He was not investing for retirement. He wasn't investing. IRAs didn't even exist back then, if I remember correctly, when they came about. Um, uh, and so, or maybe I'm thinking the 401k. It doesn't matter. Anyway, retirement accounts of, he wasn't investing in a retirement account. I'm talking about investing um, outside of retirement to continue to further your goals. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of this compound interest if you're unfamiliar with it, to show you the effects of investing versus saving. Nobody grows money or grows wealthy um, saving money in the bank necessarily. It just doesn't grow fast enough to overtake inflation for long-term things. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. You'll see the number 65 on here, but this is just for illustrative purposes. Again, I'm not talking just about retirement. So that is key as well. I especially mention that to you guys because if I remember correctly, state, county, city employees type things, do you guys have pensions actually? Will somebody throw that in the chat? Do you guys still have pensions? Yes. Okay. So that's what I thought. I'm fairly familiar with different state and municipality things. So with pensions, and I believe you got some automatic deposits into a retirement account, whether or not you enroll, right? Okay. And matches that go beyond what most people do. So that's why I say most of the time municipality employees have retirement almost taken care of for themselves without even thinking about it, if they'll just do the matches and things. So I bring this up for illustrative purposes, but you can see here, this is our first investor, right? She doesn't start investing until age 26 for whatever reason. Maybe that's when she's got a job and feels like she can, but she starts putting $150 per month for 40 years, which is awesome. Her total contributions over those 40 years are $72,000, which is a significant chunk of change, but because of compound interest, right? Earning interest on interest on interest. And because she's doing it regularly, taking advantage of the volatility of the market, that $72,000 over the course of 40 years turns into 1.7 million. It's pretty awesome. Now, just to clarify what this investment is, this is using the S&P 500 index fund, which is a fund that mirrors the performance of the top 500 companies in America. And so you're investing in things like technology as well as like construction, real estate, right? You're all over the board. It's a great place to be in. And it's companies that you interact with every day. And it's over the last 100 years, it's averaged a 10% return, right? Some years it was down, right? Like this year, last year, it was down a little bit. Some years it might go down 15%. Some years it might go up 25, but annualized, it's been a 10% return. The interesting thing about investing is this, and this is why I mention it. We've all heard the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Take a look at our other investor. She, for whatever reason, just decides at age 18, when she can open up a particular account because she's bondable, she starts investing $150 per month for 8 years. So the total amount she invests is 5 times less. It's $14,400 in that same S&P 500 index fund. 40 years later, at age 65, she now has $2.2 million. Throw it in the chat. I'm guessing somebody knows this. Why in the world would 5 times less invested equate to $500,000 or so more by the time they're 65? Compound time, there it is. Compound interest impacted both. Time. She just had more time in the market. That's it. So the idea here is to not procrastinate. If you can do steps 1, 2, or 3, or something similar to that, right? Something that doing things just a little bit differently to begin to secure your next 5-year goals, right? Make sure that you're prepared for an emergency or for a job loss or for car problems or whatever it might be, to help minimize especially your dependency on debt instruments, right? If you can do things like that and begin to invest as well on top of that, now you're beginning to look at your own goals growing. And the cool thing is that, oops, the reason I bring this up is technology has never made it easier to invest for things other than retirement. So maybe you've heard of some of these apps. Um, they are called robo-advisors. You can also access the same investment opportunities through like a Fidelity or a Vanguard or, I have Acorns and love it. Great, good. So I'm glad you said that. You can access, it's called a brokerage account, or you can invest directly into a mutual fund. Now, there are some tax implications with that, but you can experience that kind of growth for long-term goals, right? And I would suggest, by the way, 7 to 10 years or more, um, just because of the volatility. But if you want to have, you've got a goal that's 10 or 15 years away, investing is a great option. Let me give you an example. Somebody maybe wants to pay down their house early, and that's a great goal. Right now, you can refinance, and rates are in the threes for a mortgage. If you just put extra money towards your mortgage every month, what you're doing is you're guaranteeing a 3% return on your investment in essence, right? Because you're saving money or interest payments at a 3.25% rate. That's good, and you're paying it off faster. But if it's going to be 10 or 15 years with the amount that you could put down, let's say it's going to be 15 or 20 years, you'd take a 30-year loan to a 20-year loan. Okay, so we know it's 20 years out before you're going to be able to pay off your home. What if you took some of that money that you were putting towards, an individual was putting towards their home, and invested it? So they were paying directly towards their mortgage, but they were also investing some on the side. And in 20 years, their money has grown at a 10% rate. Now they have a larger chunk of money and they could actually pay it down a little faster, right? And so I'm not suggesting that that's right for you. Some people just hate the idea of debt. That's just an example of a goal that's common to people, where investing is an option because of some of this availability that maybe we haven't thought about before. Like I said, the idea is, are there options where I could do money differently that maybe I haven't considered before that would facilitate goals in ways that I hadn't considered? So I bring that up to consider investing, to move you into that maybe success situation where you can grow money over time a little bit faster than just in the bank. And for things outside of retirement that are still tied to your life goals. For example, paying yourself second, right? You guys mentioned these opportunities to give. I've read, my background is actually psychology and behavioral finance, and I've read a lot of studies actually, and a couple of books about the relationship between happiness, fulfillment, money, and giving. And across the world, one study that I'm thinking of, some people did, they surveyed 136 countries, and they found that giving to charity or giving to others had the same impact on people's happiness and life fulfillment as doubling their income. And so this ability to not only provide for yourself, but to also maybe provide for others, helps with that success, right? That feeling of success, whether it be family members, whether it be friends, whether it be causes that you're passionate about, whatever it might be. Okay? But this is kind of that step number 5. That's the process, to doing money a little differently, to thinking about opportunities, especially with technology, that enable us to facilitate our goals in ways that we hadn't considered before. Now, we've got a few minutes, and I want to show you one other quick thing just real fast. Especially about investing, a lot of people have individual questions about investing, and I'm sorry, in a situation like this where we've got so many that we can't necessarily maybe address specific needs. But if you would like to, like I mentioned, the financial coaching, if you come to macu.com and go to this make appointment button, and I'll post this in the chat as well. If you want to have an investing conversation, my team and we're not licensed financial advisors, but a lot of people especially have questions about investing or paying down debt or how to use technology to help you move your financial goals forward. If you come here and go to personal financial counseling, you can set up a virtual meeting or a phone meeting with me or with one of my team, and we can help answer those questions so that if nothing else, you could be prepared to talk to somebody about investing, right? Sometimes financial advisors get a little jargony to help them sell, and so they start throwing around a bunch of different terms and numbers. But if you've got specific questions, maybe you've heard something today that you want to talk through in more detail, please feel free to sign up for an appointment. My team and I are not compensated by accounts. We don't have access to open accounts or anything. It really is just education and kind of help planning. So aside from that, I'll open a poll too, if you wouldn't mind. Just it's just 2 quick questions, but if you've got specific questions, it's been a pleasure. Again, you were very fun to interact with, just like last time. I've been looking forward to this presentation for a couple of weeks because of the interaction that was last time. And so if you've got any questions, I'll obviously stick around. You can enter them into the chat. We can have a private chat if whatever you'd like, whatever you need in the next couple of minutes. But that's the content for today. Make sure you dream, make sure you save differently and automatically, spend differently and automatically, invest and incorporate some giving, and see yourself move from that survivor to success mode. So it's been a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, month. We'll look forward to hopefully interacting with you some more. But if you got any questions, I'll stick around. Thanks. For your kind words there in the chat. I appreciate that. I'm glad it was valuable to you.